Yes, buckle your seatbelt.
Hello all, welcome to another Roundtable Reviews. Today I have Vance Major with me and we are reviewing Star Trek TNG Lonely Among Us. And oh boy.
Indubitably, my dear Ramblin'.
Oh, good lord. I never did like when Data went to Sherlock.
And I'm sucking on my pipe. Oh, damn it.
That didn't sound right.
Yeah.
Oy vey. Where to start? I'll let you go.
Well, like this had all the makings of a really great episode. Yet it's kind of one of those things where it's like you invite your friends over, you all bring each thing to make a great bowl, great pot of chili, and you each dump your stuff in the pot, and then you stir it up, and then it ends up just tasting like shit. And it's because you don't know what the hell you're doing. The reason why this episode to me is a bad episode of Star Trek is because it tried too much to feel like TOS, especially at the end where Yar comes in and they're like, Captain, the delegates are trying to boil reptile and they asked the cook to do this and it looks like an Antikin and reptile and whatever. And Picard's like, Riker, it's up to you. I'm going to go take a rest and nap and hardy har har. And Riker looks at everybody else like, oh my goodness, hardy har har. And it's like, that's so slapstick TOS style. And it doesn't feel like Next Gen. To me, they were still trying to find their footing, and that's why the ending doesn't feel right. The other part that I find wrong with this episode is the relieving the captain of duty should be a very clear-cut look. All of us in the senior staff think you're incapacitated. You're done. There's no, well, I think you guys are, so you can't do this to me. Ha ha. No, horseshit. Fuck off. You can't do that. That's not the way it works. That's stupid. If it was that easy, nobody would ever be relieved of duty. You can't do it that way. The only reason why you're doing it is to add false tension, and I don't like that. And that's stupid. And third of all, forgive me for going on a rant here. The other problem with it is the only reason why they feel like there's something wrong with the captain is for story purposes. For the captain to turn around and say, hey, let's head back and look at that cloud. There's nothing wrong with that order. It would have been better if he had said, you know what, let's head back and turn back. Let's investigate that. There would have been nothing wrong with that. For them to do it organically would have been a much better premise for them to say, hey, you know what? Slowly for them to be like, hey, something's wrong with the captain. That would have been better for them to do it organically, but they didn't do it that way. It was just for no reason. Hey, something's wrong with the captain. Oh, yeah, you're right. Oh, yeah, you're right. There was nothing wrong. If you had just given the order, it would have been fine. But they didn't slow build anything. It was just, okay, we need this. We're running out of time. Let's go with the story. But it just didn't work. So if they had just taken their time and built it, it would have been fine. I mean, some engineer died for no reason we didn't care about. If we just eliminated that part of the story and got to the captain getting possessed quicker, it would have been a much better story from my perspective. So take away those flaws, it would have been a great story. So, what do you think?
Yeah, well, for me, like, the whole captain thing, they focus in on the order, but they had so much more to work with because, of course, Patrick Stewart, being the overactor that he is in certain degrees, he gives them body language that isn't Jean-Luc. And that's never brought up, right? He's not acting like Jean-Luc. Jean-Luc never jumps out of his chair and dances across the bridge, right? Picard doesn't do that. And he does that in this episode, basically. And it's like, well, you're not acting like yourself. You're not the order doesn't make sense. We've got this, and then to tie this into my other issue, the main story plot of this episode is sold to you at the beginning that they're taking 2 delegates from rival factions to the conference at Parliament. Okay. By the end of the episode, that's a side plot. Not even really all that important.
Right.
And nobody gives a flying hoot. So you're sold at the beginning of the episode, okay, so this is what this episode's about. It's about getting these delegates safely to this meeting. Okay, cool. Then this happens in the middle of it and takes over the main storyline, and this now becomes the subsection, almost the comedy relief. Oh, look, these 2 stupid aliens are fighting again. What the fuck?
Yeah, it would have been different if they had picked up that storyline like later on like maybe a couple episodes later, kind of like they did with the Ferengi, where you hear about the Ferengi encounter at Farpoint, and then a couple episodes later you see the Ferengi, and then a couple episodes later you see the Ferengi again in the last battle. With the one Ferengi who personally has that vendetta against Picard, where it's they have an over arc,
Yeah.
Even though it was sort of limited, you see that they're kind of a reoccurring villain. They have somewhat of an overarching story throughout the season, somewhat. It would have been different if this was a thread in this one, and then a couple episodes later you hear peace talks broke down. And that pays off in a later episode. But for something where this is never brought back up again, to me, I would love for this to at least been brought back up in, say, maybe DS9, where hey, this was really important for the Federation, but it's never brought back up again. And they even made toys of these aliens. Back in 1988, Galoob made. They made 4 alien characters, or was it 5? Let's see. They made the Ferengi, they made Q, they made the Soleil, and they made the Antiken. So yeah, they made 4 alien. Yeah, they made 4 alien, and then they made the Romulan in Wave 2, but that was never released. That was a rare figure. But they, this had such an impact on the series, but they were only in 1 episode, so to me it's like, what was the point? Because they were just in 1 episode, but they were more or less throwaway. And they, even though they were the talking, the jawline of the Antiken was kind of abysmal, which is something they could have got worked out later on, through better makeup. For what they were doing in 1988, that was pretty good. I was very impressed with the Soleil, but yeah, they were kind of just throwaway aliens.
Yeah.
And you would
throwaway storyline.
Yeah, you would think for as much time and effort that went into those aliens, they would have been brought back, or they would have done more with that. And I'm sorry, but the electrolyte show that they did with the gaseous cloud energy that was traveling at warp speed, like that was kind of the boring part of the episode. I really didn't give 2 shits about that.
Yeah, I think they should have just cut that whole section out and just focused on the 2 delegates. I think that would have been a much better episode than this added. It's like the old adage, okay, so we have delegates. We have delegates who don't like each other. We have to take them somewhere. But wait, there's more. And it's we didn't need the but wait, there's more. We've got enough right now. We're good.
Well, part of the problem with this episode is both you have 2 storylines, and both of them are fighting for story A screen time.
Yeah.
Next gen, and in fact all of Trek for the most part has story A and story B. Story B is usually the side story doesn't get much screen time, but it's kind of the backbone. It's the story that kind of runs, through the background of the story, and story A is always at the forefront. With this one, you really don't know what the story, this one, it's, the B story kind of gets as much screen time as story B. It's just as prevalent as the energy one.
The only difference is the energy one has a conclusion and the other one doesn't.
Well, putting it like this, it may have just a little bit more screen time, but you have more money thrown into the makeup, the aliens.
Yes.
So when you look at it that way, which one is worth more money-wise?
Yeah.
When you look at it from a production point of view.
Yeah, and so, then they basically threw that one away.
Yeah, which one, looking at it from a production point of view, which one gave you more bang for your buck?
Yeah.
And when I look at this episode, I think this is just a waste of money.
Yeah.
If I was looking at it from a money point of view, I would be like, I don't see any monetary value for this. This would be a great bottle show for, okay, we're traveling to these different departments and you have an alien entity that's traveling from host to host to host. That's a great show from a whodunit perspective. You also have a great show for, we have diplomatic aliens, we have a hunt. That's a great premise. What can you do with that? I mean, this would be a great show to have aliens debating, you did this to us, you did this to us. Okay, Captain Picard, you've got to be a great diplomat here. Like, this would be a great show to show Captain Picard's diplomatic side. Or to have Yar, saying you can't do this aboard the Enterprise. This is how you be more peaceful. Like, this would be a great exploration of show these two races how to be peaceful. However, you don't see anything here except for hearty har har reptilian soup, at the end. This is just
and Diane, and then of course Counselor Troy. Counselor bloody Troy.
Yeah, she waste again. I don't see any. There are moments where Troy is needed in the series or useful.
This is not one of them.
But there's nothing in the first season where I find her useful. Especially when they try to marry her off. I hate those episodes because I think there's like half a dozen times where she's either supposed to get married or she falls in love. I don't like those episodes where a main character meets a mysterious person, falls in love, and oh my goodness, I might leave the ship, or oh my goodness, this might change my life. Like, I don't like that because that never feels real to me.
Yeah.
And that happens at least a dozen times. Yeah, it does. And I hate that because it never feels organic, because it's like, how many times, does that happen to us? I mean, I'm not talking about when you meet someone, you're like, oh man, I that person's cute. I want to go on a date with them. But I'm talking about like, man, I want to just up and leave my entire life for this person. Man, that never happens. That very seldom does that happen, let alone everybody that's connected to me does that happen to. It doesn't happen. Yeah. And that happens several times to Troy, and it's because you don't know what else to do with the character. To me, it's like, the best thing to do would be write her off. And that's not a knock on Marina Sirtis. I mean, she's a fine actress, I guess. But, it's pretty sad when your highlighted moments is, the drunk moment in Star Trek First Contact,
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wind this down. So your final thoughts on this thing and grade?
Are we allowed to give negative numbers?
Sure,
it's a fine episode, I guess. Given the fact that it's first season and they've established some of who these characters are, I'm gonna have to give it a low ball here. I'd have to say probably a 2.
Yeah,
it's a piece of shit.
I am.
Yeah,
that's where I am.
Yeah.
It's just it's to me, at the end of the day, it's two writers that were put in two different rooms and told to write the same episode. And they went with half of the script from one, half of the script from the other, married the two, and went, booyah, we have an episode.
Indubitably.
Yes. With some really cheesy lines thrown in for Data.
Here's
for no apparent reason.
Here's the thing. When they make Brent Spiner, and again, like this, they can write cute for Brent Spiner and make him seem so Pinocchio-ish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't find that here. I find it annoying.
Yes.
And when you make Data annoying like that, it felt too forced.
Yeah, just a tad.
But
yep.
it just felt forced to me.
Yeah, it just didn't fit.
I felt like the writers were just we've got to make this work. We've got to make this. We've got to find our niche. And to me, it felt like they found their footing, and now okay, we've got to ram this down the audience's throat.
Yeah,
and to me, I don't like that. Let me come to my own conclusions that the character is cute. That this is the Spock character. That this is what you want me to think. Like, don't try to force me to think that. Otherwise, I'm not going to like the character. If this was 1988 and I was watching this for the first time, I wouldn't have liked Data. So at the time, I really liked this episode as a kid, and those Data moments worked for me. Now, as I'm watching it with kind of a critical, I'm not enjoying that. Not for this episode. Other stuff, with Data, I do. I love it because again, Data was the man. But for this episode, no, this one was not very good for Brent Spiner, and he's a great actor. So
absolutely. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to say thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully, Cap will be able to join us next week. He was out, not feeling well this evening, so hopefully Cap will be back next week. And until next time, take her